Okay, God bless you in Jesus' mighty name. Today is January the 26th, 2024, and I happen to be at work right now, but I'll be doing my best to go through the complete chapter of chapter 26. The title of this one is called Observations About Fools. There are 28 verses here. Again, I pray that I'm able to complete it in its entirety. If not, I will do a part one, stop, and try to do a part two and submit that by tonight. I'll go ahead and start reading. I have with me my Bible, and this is a parallel Bible, King James / Amplified version. I'm going to read all 28 verses in the King James, and then I'm going to go back through them with some notes and things that I have, and maybe touch up a little bit on the Amplified, and hopefully we can break that down. I pray that everyone's doing well. I pray that everyone's doing well, that we're learning from the Word of the Lord, and that we're growing in our studies. I pray that we're gaining a lot from His Word, and I pray that even these Proverbs that the Lord is leading me to go and show right now, I pray that they're being revealed in ways that opens up our minds more to His Word. Now, a lot of them I kind of break up and kind of give an example, and that's just something that I'm thinking of in the moment, but there can be other examples of the same proverb that may reach you better. Again, always go through God's Word. He is speaking to you, as you're reading it, so a lot of these thoughts can reach you in a different way. A lot of these verses can reach you in a different way. So I may say it one way and it doesn't do it justice enough, but you may go back and reread it and say, hey, I'm getting a little bit more out of this. This is where I feel the Lord is leading me, and this is a scenario where I feel like that this makes perfect sense. Go through it. God's going to show you the manner of what that word is going through. But I'm going to go ahead and start. So there are 28 verses here, so let's go ahead and begin. Verse 1 of chapter 26. As snow in summer and as rain in harvest, so honor is not seemly for a fool. As the bird by wandering, as the swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. Verse 4, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. Verse 5, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. Verse 6, he that sendeth a message by the hand of a fool cutteth off the feet and drinketh damage. Verse 7, the legs of the lame are not equal, so is a parable in the mouth of fools. Verse 8, as he that bindeth a stone in a sling, so is he that giveth honor to a fool. Verse 9, as a thorn goeth up in the hand of a drunkard, so is a parable in the mouth of fools. Verse 10, the great God that formed all things both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth transgressors. Verse 11, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. Verse 12, seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope of a fool than of him. Verse 13, the slothful man saith, there is a lion in the way, a lion is in the streets. Verse 14, as the door turneth upon his hinges, so doeth the slothful upon his bed. 15, the slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Verse 16, the sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than 7 men can render a reason. 17, He that passeth by and meddleth with strife belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears. Verse 18. As a madman who casteth firebrand arrows in death, so is the man that deceiveth his neighbor, and saith, Am not I in sport? Verse 20. Where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So, where there is no talebearer, the strife ceases. Verse 21. As coals are to burning coals, and wood to fire, so a contentious man to kindle strife. So is a contentious man to kindle strife. 22. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. 23. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered with silver dross. 24. He that hateth disassembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. Whoso hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. 27. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. And verse 28. A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. Okay, a lot of stuff here to work with. I'll go ahead and begin with the first verse. It goes on to say, As snow in summer and as rain in harvest, so honor is not seemly for a fool. In the Amplified it says, like snow in summer, which you don't have snow in the summer, and like rain in harvest, which you don't want, to have rain when you're there collecting your stuff. So honor is not fitting for a short-sighted fool. In the NLT it says, honor is no more associated with fools than snow with summer or rain with harvest. And in this I'm kind of imagining, you have let's say you have a foolish employee, right? This guy's careless. He doesn't work, he's always trying to get around things, just does the worst of things, right? And then all of a sudden, let's just say a manager promotes this person. Why would they promote somebody like that? You may think, well, let's say they work there a long time. Let's say they've been there 13 years and they've been sweeping floors the whole time, and finally they're going to get their position, right? So they get promoted to a position. Let's say it's a high position. Let's say you made this guy a supervisor or a manager all of a sudden. Isn't it? Yeah, I would imagine it would probably cause a lot of people trouble to have this person in this position, seeing that they weren't worthy of the job they had. How's this person going to be to the company? Is he going to hide in the broom closet and go to sleep? Is he going to be an actual supervisor that oversees things? Or is he going to be somebody, that is quick to fire people? They might be valued employees. He might be hot-tempered or something, like, hey, you cheated me or you did wrong to me, maybe I'll do this to you. Is that somebody you would give that kind of position to? Did they earn it? Did they qualify for it? So to me, that kind of goes with that sentence. It's undeserving, right? Honor is no more associated with fools than snow with summer or rain in harvest. I'll continue with verse 2. So verse 2 goes on, it says, As a bird by wandering, as a swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. In the Amplified it says, like the sparrow in her wandering, like the bird flying, just kind of flying about, like the swallow in her flying, so the curse without cause does not come and alight on the undeserving. So basically, a curse will not come on the person that's not deserving of it, right? It's not going to fall on that person unless they deserve it. So basically it's saying an undeserved curse will not land on its intended victim. Like a bird that darts and flies away and wanders in the air, a curse undeserving will not land on its intended victim. So this is like a bird that's going on in the air. It's not landing. It's not doing any of that. This will not come to a person like that. Now, if you do deserve something, like the wicked, if they have something coming to them because they've been acting out in a certain way, then they get what they asked for in that sense. But not if you don't. Verse 3 goes, a whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. Pretty self-explanatory there. On the Amplified, it says, a whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of fools who refuse to learn. Basically, you are using these items to get the animal to do what you need it to do, right? So you bridle a horse, or in this sense, they're brittling a donkey. This is that thing that they may have in their mouth or in their head, and you turn it one way, and his head turns this way, and he walks this way. And you turn it the other way, and he walks in this direction. And you pull back, and the horse or the donkey may stop. And when an animal is stubborn, or you're in the carriage, you may whip at the animal, and the animal may move faster. You're doing something to it in order for it to do something for you. You want it to go faster. You want it to move to the right, to the left. But a fool, they're not getting it, right? So like you keep telling this person over and over again, they still don't get it. This is those that get punishment. It's like the rod for their back. So what I put on here is you use these items to move and direct the animal to your need, and a rod is for the back of fools. That's just kind of how they are. They're not learning, and they get punished. Hopefully they get it that time. 4 and 5, they kind of go together. 4 says, answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou also be like unto him. 5 goes, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. On the Amplified, it says, do not answer or pretend to agree with the frivolous comments of a closed-minded fool according to his folly. Otherwise, even you will be like him. Verse 5 says, answer and correct the erroneous concepts of a fool according to his folly. Otherwise, he will be wise in his own eyes if he thinks you agree with him. On 4 and 5, I put notes in here, and to me, it's kind of like, it reminds me, let me see. On 4, I put, don't make a fool of yourself by answering a fool. In the NLT, it pretty much says the same. It says, don't answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you will become foolish as they are. Right? Somebody may say something dumb, and then you're answering that question. You may be trying to preach the gospel to them, and then they just keep throwing out all this stuff. They're not trying to hear it, and they're like luring you into their game, and it's not worth your time because they're not going to take good advice. They don't want good advice, even if it would save them. So it's almost not worthy for them or not fit for them in that sense. You're just wasting your breath on this person at the time because they keep, doesn't matter what you say, right, wrong, probably not wrong, but they're not going to accept it. They're going to throw something else out there. So it goes on to say, don't make a fool of yourself by answering a fool. Don't answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you will become as foolish as they are. Now I have kind of 4 and 5, and they kind of work in together, and it reminds me a little bit when I see the Amplified version. It says, do not answer or pretend, nor pretend to agree with the frivolous comment of a closed-minded fool according to his folly. Otherwise, even you will be like him. It kind of reminds me a little bit, and I said this like preachers, right? So I said it kind of reminds me of preachers that are pushing, that God is love agenda, but without boundaries, And then you get somebody in the LGBTQ community or something, and they'll say, well, God is love, and God is this, isn't he? And the word goes, that here is love, that a man laid down his life for his friends, and God sent his son Jesus, and that's exactly what he did. He laid down his life for us so that we don't have the sentence of death. when we stand before God, because he already did it. He's perfect. He already did it. And when you're following the Lord, when you're choosing to follow the Lord, when you believe that what he did to save you, it goes on to also say that his name will be Emmanuel, because he will save them from their sins, right? So God had sent Jesus to save us so that we don't have eternal separation from the Father. But he's also Lord. And if we listen to him, if we're really listening to him, and we know the difference between what is a sin and what is not, we're going to follow him as Lord. It says that my sheep hear my voice. So if you hear the Lord, you're going to follow him as Lord. But there are those that don't. They go on to say that God is this or God is love. And, there's another verse in the Bible that goes on to say, if somebody preach another Jesus to you, let this man be accursed, right? Basically, there's another verse that goes on to say that God is the same today, yesterday, and forever. Now really think about that. If Jesus is the same today as he was 2,000 years ago, and he is the same forever, then that means he doesn't change, right? And if he is God, or if he's the Son of God, who we call on, right, then we are subject to God, right? We can't change who God is. If God was fit for our boundaries, if he was unchangeable because we made him change, then he's not God at all. If we can go and change him, he's not God at all. But we are subject to him because we're people. We're subject to God. God doesn't change. So if we're changing God and saying, oh, well, God is love and you can do whatever you want, it goes on to say that he comes to save you from your sins. His name is Emmanuel, and he will save you from your sins. If you're hearing the Lord, my sheep hear my voice, and you know that you're in sin, you're going to follow him and refuse the sin. He doesn't want you to live and stay in the same cycle that you've been in. He comes to save you from that. If you're not coming out of that, you're not following him as Lord, you're not calling him Lord, then who are you calling Lord? It's almost as if you're making, if God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, and he doesn't change, and you're making him change to fit your agenda, to say that God is love and he accepts us this and we can all do this, and that we have a God that's openly okay with your sin and you staying in that way, then we don't serve him as a God at all. Basically, we're more God over him than he is over us. And that's not who God is. God still is God. We are people. He is God. The same today, yesterday, forever. He doesn't change. And really think about that. If we're making God change to fit who we call God in our own imagination, if we're saying that our God says it's okay to do all this stuff, then we are worshiping a God in our own image. You are making an idol. This is not the God of the Bible. Okay? So really think about that. Who are you serving? How are you serving the Lord? Are you following him with your whole heart? Or are you following your own agenda and trying to put God here? Because really you're putting you right on top of it. And that's not the order of how things go. And so just kind of going over that verse, it reminds me of like preachers that may have pushed those boundaries to a part where, hey, it's okay. God is love, this and that. And then you get a generation that comes through and then they push your boundaries and they say, well, isn't God this? Well, isn't God this? And because you didn't have people speak up when they should have a long time ago, now you have a group of people that are trying to tell you who God is. So to me, that's kind of answer a fool according to his folly, or you'll be like him, or you're accepting him, or he thinks he's wise in his own consent or his own conceit because he thinks that it's this way and they're looking at it through a wrong lens. Going on to verse 6. Verse 6 says, he that sendeth a message by the hand of a fool cutteth off the feet and drinketh damage. In the Amplified it says, he who sends a message by the hand of a fool cuts off his own feet or sabotages himself and drinks the violence it brings on himself as a consequence. In the GNT, the Good News Translation, it says, "If you let a fool deliver a message, you might as well cut off your own feet. You are asking for trouble." And I know this is kind of a bad example, secular stuff that we watch. I remember seeing the movie Joe Dirt a long time ago, and there's an incident where this girl who Joe Dirt is kind of talking to, her dad is out drinking and took the dog with him. He was going to go hunting or something, and then all of a sudden he's coming across the railroad tracks, and the arms of the tracks close because the train's coming in. It locks onto his leg, and he goes on and he tells the dog, "Go, boy, go, send for help." Hopefully somebody can get there in time to stop the train so that his leg doesn't get cut off. And in that moment, you have a dog, and the dog goes around. He sees another female dog, starts messing around, takes his time, comes all the way back. Finally, I guess the dog lets somebody know, and by then the dad comes back. The police drive him to the house, and he has his foot amputated because the dog did nothing to save him. And it's just something that it's a foolish. I guess it's not the best description or best answer, but it's something that comes to mind when I'm thinking about somebody's foot getting removed from them because you sent a fool to deliver the message to you. Just something that popped in my mind, one of those silly things. Going on to verse 7. Verse 7 says, "The legs of the lame are not equal, so is a parable in the mouth of fools." In the Amplified it says, "Like the legs which are useless to the lame, so is a proverb in the mouth of a fool who cannot learn from its wisdom." So let's say you have a person that is paralyzed. They may still have their limbs, they may still have their legs, but it's almost like, what is the point of having those legs when you can't walk with them? In that sense, you have them but you can't walk. It's almost kind of like it's no use in the same sense. What's the point of giving wisdom or the proverb to a fool if they won't learn from it? They won't use it. It has that same similarity to it. Verse 8, "He that bindeth a stone in a sling is as he that giveth honor to a fool." In the Amplified, "Like one who absurdly binds a stone in a sling, making it impossible to throw, so is he who absurdly gives honor to a fool." So basically I'm thinking a slingshot, but instead of having the rock in the slingshot and letting it go and having it come your way, you tied it in a knot, and where's it going to go? It's going to hold on to the thing, possibly hit your own self in the face. It's something that, on my notes I put, it makes as much sense as tying a stone to a sling. To give a full honor is just as foolish as shooting a slingshot with a rock tied in it. It'll only hurt you or make you look bad or foolish. Going on to the next verse, 9. "As a thorn goeth up in the hand of a drunkard, so is a parable in the mouth of fools." In the Amplified, "Like a thorn that goes without being felt into the hand of a drunken man, so is a proverb in the mouth of a fool who remains unaffected by its wisdom." A fool doesn't comprehend wisdom, right? Just like a drunkard doesn't feel when he gets a thorn in his hand. So that's kind of the basically what it's saying. Like a fool doesn't get it. He's not getting wisdom. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't see it. He's not comprehending it. And just like a drunkard, they might fall on a thorny bushes and get thorns in their hands, and they won't even know they're so drunk. It kind of gives that similarity to it. Verse 10. This is why I say it's important to have your Bibles and know what's on one version and know what's on another. I'm going to read the King James Version of verse 10, and then I'm going to read the Amplified Version of verse 10, and they're completely different. Verse 10 in the King James, it says, "The great God that formed all things both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth transgressors." Verse 10 in the Amplified, it says, "Like a careless archer who shoots arrows wildly and wounds everyone, so is he who hires a fool, or those who by chance pass by." Verse 10 it's not the same verse. They're like completely different. In fact, this one, verse 10, looks like it's more suitable. It's more suitable for like verse. Oh wow, there's another one that has like arrows being shot, and it's further down, and it seems more suitable for that kind of for that verse there. I think it's verse 19. Verse 18, verse 19. Verse 10 in the Amplified looks like it fits verse 18 and 19. But it's not the matching same 10. But so I'll go on and say verse 10 here in the Good News Translation. It says, an employer who hires any fool that comes along is only hurting everybody. Is only hurting everybody concerned. You get what's coming to you. Basically, when I say you get what's coming to you, that's in verse 10. The great God that formed all things both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth transgressors. God will bless you, and you can be cursed or walk into a situation where you're affected of it, but you had it coming, and it's like you had that coming to you, and you get what you have coming. In this sense, God will give that even to the fool. If you deserve punishment or wrath or jail time or whatever, you have it coming. That's your reward. But in the Amplified, like a careless archer who shoots arrows wildly and wounds everyone, so is he who hires a fool or those who by chance just pass by. Kind of reminds me of the first or second verse that I read about hiring an employee that's a fool and making him somebody important. In the Good News Translation, it says, an employer who hires any fool that comes along is only hurting everybody else concerned. It's only affecting all the other workers, everybody else around. It's not good for everyone's sake when you have that person around or in charge or so on. Let's go to verse 11. As a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. Like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his foolishness. On here I put, God doesn't want us to go back. He doesn't want us to go back. He saves us from our sin. He wants better for us. And people get caught up and they go back into their old life. They go back where, somebody may be in jail, right? And then they come out expecting, hey, I'm going to get a job, maybe I'll have my life cleaned up, and nobody wants to hire them or something because they may have a criminal record or whatever their past may be, and then they go back to doing what they used to do that may make them money or something, right? Selling drugs or doing something, like you couldn't stay away from what was going to get you in trouble. It's only a matter of time before you get killed or thrown back in jail again. The person is repeating what they have gone through again. And in this one, I kind of put a verse in here, and it's in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, and it's Cain and Abel. So you have Cain who ends up killing his brother Abel. But before the incident, Abel's offering is received or accepted by God, which was the best of his calf, right? One of his flock. He was a shepherd. And Abel, he tended the field. And what he got was his fruits or his vegetables, what he had, and he gave that to God, and it wasn't accepted. To me, I see that kind of as works, one's sending work-based, one's giving an offering. We have an offering that died for us. You're not saved by your works. I kind of see the similarities there, but later Cain he's upset, right? He's upset because Abel's offering got accepted, his isn't, and he's all bitter about it, right? Like he's angry or mad or however he's handling the situation. And God comes in and he tells him pretty much, why are you so upset? You need to get that out of your mind, get that out of your head. And he goes on to say that, do you not know that sin is at the door? Its desire is to have you. Sin's desire is to have you, but you must master it, right? Are we a slave to our sin? Are we in bondage to our sin? Are we constantly going back and doing our sin, or sleeping around, or drinking, or committing adultery, or watching pornography, or lying, or homosexuality, whatever it is? Are you going and doing those things? Are you now a new person in Christ? Do you have the strength, because you're following the Lord, to not go back into that stuff? Are you letting the Lord deliver you? Are you walking in his steps? Just like a dog returns to his vomit. Are you going to go back? Is that where you think you belong? Sin's desire is to have you, wants to take you to hell. It wants to take you away from God. But you must master it. Are you a slave to your sin? Going on to verse 12. Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope of a fool than of him. Do you see a man who is unteachable and wise in his own eyes and full of self-conceit? There is more hope of a fool than for him. And in this one, they give references. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 20, Luke chapter 18, verse 11, Romans chapter 12, verse 16, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 17. And I had actually written down the Good News translation, and it basically it says, "The most stupid fool is better off than those who think they are wise when they are not." And there are some that are really, really, really stuck in it. Going on to verse 13. Verse 13. The slothful man saith, there is a lion in the way. A lion is in the streets. In the Amplified, the lazy person who's self-indulgent and relies on lame excuses says, there's a lion in the road. A lion is in the open square, and if I go outside to work, I'll be killed. Basically, they're always making excuses. They don't care to work. They're too lazy. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They're going to come up with some excuse. And that's just a scenario of it. Verse 14, as the door turneth upon his hinges, so doeth the slothful upon his bed. As the door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy person on his bed, never getting out of it. And that's pretty self-explanatory there. In the NLT, the New Living Translation, it says, as a door swings back and forth on its hinges, so the lazy person turns over in bed. It's kind of like saying, look at you, you're just like a door that swings back and forth, and you on your bed, you're turning on this side of the pillow and rolling over and turning around and going right back to sleep again. It's using that comparison of the lazy person. Verse 15. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, it grieveth him to bring it back again to his mouth. The lazy person buries his hand in the dish, losing opportunity after opportunity. It wearies him to bring it back to his mouth. And I put on here a sluggard. A sluggard is too lazy. They won't work to feed themselves, right? So it's kind of like you have a bowl of soup and you bury the spoon in the soup or in the bowl or bowl of cereals, and you're too lazy to bring it back up to your mouth again to feed you. Do you not know that if you work, you get money? If you get money, you now have money to buy stuff. But you're too lazy to work. You're too lazy to bring it up to yourself. You're too lazy to go and get it. So that, to me, that's kind of more or less an example of that, or a comparison of it. Verse 16, the sluggard is wiser in his own conceit than 7 men can render a reason. The lazy person is wiser in his own eyes than 7 sensible men can give a discreet answer. In the Contemporary English Version, it says, a lazy person says, I'm smarter than everyone else. And that kind of reminds me of some people that you see. They're like, oh, this whole place would fall apart if it weren't for me. And they think that they're always coming up, they're showing up to work late, or they're not eager to do anything. They're too lazy, and somebody's like, hey man, don't you know that you're only hurting yourself. They don't care, and they just have that kind of excuse. Man, this place, if it weren't for me, they'd fall apart. They need me. They have to have me. That's kind of the example that I see, that a reasoning that somebody would give, right? I'm smarter than everybody else, or I think I know better than what you're trying to tell me, and then they get fired. let's go with verse 17. He that passeth by and meddleth with strife belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears. Like one who grabs a dog by the ears and is likely to be bitten, is he who passing by stops to meddle with a dispute that is none of his business. And that one pretty much explains itself. You see somebody in an overly heated argument, they're fighting, fist fighting or whatever. It's probably, I can't say that's not good to break it up. It would be smart to try to break it up, but you alone trying to break it up is more than likely going to get a few hits in your direction as well. If you have more people there, it might be a little bit easier to stop, but what's the situation? What's going on there? You could put yourself in a bad situation too. You don't know the mess that somebody's got going on there. Verse 18, 18, it kind of goes, I believe this one, 18 and 19 might go together. 18 and 19 go together. And 18 says, as a madman who casteth firebrand, arrows, and death, so is the man that deceiveth his neighbor and saith, am not I in sport? In the Amplified it says, like a madman who throws firebrand, arrows, and death, so is a man who deceives his friend, his neighbor, acquaintance, friend, and then says, was I not joking? So going on to that, I've seen some other verses, and one kind of goes like a madman or like a maniac shooting a deadly weapon, right? You got this person who's wildly doing that. It goes on to say, it's no crazier to shoot flaming arrows than to cheat someone and say, I was only fooling. I was only messing around. In another version it says, it kind of goes, is one who deceives or cheats their neighbor and says, I was only joking. You got somebody they did something very bad. They're trying to cheat, I don't know, steal something or do something, and the person gets caught and they're like, hey, I was only playing. They're like, no, you weren't playing. Somebody takes it very seriously. You're going to start trouble like that. Verse 20. Wait, I also got a scenario on that. That reminds me of like YouTube stars, right? You got YouTube stars, and somebody wants to do something crazy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wear all red in a Crip neighborhood, and I think I'm going to get a lot of viewers and people on Facebook. I'm just going to pull this prank on these drug dealers and all these gangbangers out here. And then you go out into the neighborhood and you're wearing all red in an all blue neighborhood, and you get killed. Hey, I was only joking, man. I didn't mean anything by it. No. You ain't playing over here. That's not cool. And that to me is kind of the better scenario to kind of say with that verse. Just like somebody who does something crazy and says, I was only playing. You have that scenario there. Verse 20 in the NLT, I have it in the NLT too. So verse 20, it says, where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. For lack of wood, the fire goes out. And where there's no whisperer who gossips, contentions quiet down. In the NLT, fire goes out without wood, right? You don't have any wood, the fire starts to die out, right? And quarrels disappear when the gossip stops. Verse 21. As coals are to burning coals, and wood to fire, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. Like charcoal to hot embers, and wood to fire, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. In the NLT, a quarrelsome person starts fights as easily as hot embers light charcoal or fire lights wood. Someone like that is always kind of starting something there. Verse 22, the words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. The words of a whisperer, gossip, are like dainty morsels to be greedily eaten. They go down into the innermost chambers of the body to be remembered and mused upon. In the Good News Translation, it says, gossip is so tasty. How we love to swallow it. Juicy gossip. Juicy gossip. That's what that sounds like. And here we are on verse 23. 23, I believe 23 through 25 go together. If not, it's 23 through 24. Yeah, 23 through 25 at least. Maybe 26. 23 through 26 I think might go together. So I'm going to go ahead and read all that together. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered with silver dross. He that hateth dissembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. Whoso hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. 23 in the Amplified through 26. Like a common clay vessel, covered with silver dross, making it appear silver when there really is no value to it, are burning lips, murmuring, manipulative words, and a wicked heart. He who hates disguises it with his lips, but he stores up deceit in his heart. When he speaks graciously and kindly to conceal his malice, do not trust him, for 7 abominations are in his heart. Though his hatred covers itself with guile and deceit, his malevolence will be revealed openly before the assembly. 27 might also kind of fall into that one too. Whosoever digs a pit for another man's feet will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone up a hill to do mischief, it'll come back on him. So going through that, basically smooth lips, hiding behind a deceptive heart, or hiding behind intentions or bad intentions or deceptive thoughts. You know, it's fake, right? You're using your mouth to say something nice, but really you're pretending, or it's fake. You're using something to say nice, but it's deceptive. You know, in the inward part, you have a different meaning to it, and that's the example they're giving. You have it like a clay pot, and it's dipped in silver. You know, it's fake. You're passing it off as counterfeit. You're passing it off as something that's really silver when it's not. It's really clay. It just has a silver coat around it. So we're smooth lips to a deceptive heart. In verse 24, I have 2 versions here that I like of that. It's the NIV and the NLT. It says, enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but their hearts, they harbor deceit. In the NLT, it says, people may people may cover their hatred with pleasant words, but they're deceiving you. All right. And so that's kind of all that there. In the Amplified, when he speaks graciously and kindly to conceal his malice, do not trust him, for 7 abominations are in his heart. In verse 26, whose hatred is covered by deceit, if this person is pretending to be for so much, his wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. At some point, eventually, you know, this person's, it's all going to come out. Everybody's going to know about it. He's been hiding it against this one person, maybe in particular, but everybody finds out. And in verse 27, whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. Basically, you catch yourself in your own trap, right? The trap that you laid falls back on your own self. And in this one, I'm reminded of the story of Esther. In the story of Esther, there was a man named Haman. Haman was an important person to the king. The king favored him and gave him a lot of responsibility. Haman thought of himself as if he were like a prince or something. You know, he was a high official respected by the king, and he thought he should get all this honor and stuff to himself. And so he would go out before, and he wanted the people to bow down to him and do all this stuff when he walked by. And Esther's, I believe it was her uncle, Mordecai, he would not bow, and he was Jewish. And so here you have this guy Mordecai, and he has this Jewish guy in his land, and he's like, I don't like this guy. I don't like Mordecai. I can't stand him. He's the only one. He was standing up. He wouldn't bow down to me. These people, they don't listen. And he goes and he spreads that rumor into the ears of the king. These people are like enemies to us. They're not worthy people. You know, they're gonna come at us. They're bitter. They're angry. They're whatever it is. You can't trust them. You know, give me permission to send out letters to other counties, that whenever we see somebody of Jewish descent, you know, we can get rid of them. We'll kill them off. That was his plan. Esther ends up becoming favored by the king. She ends up becoming the queen. You know, she ends up becoming the queen, and the king really loved her. And he didn't know, because she never told him before, that she is also a Jew. So one day she sets up a meeting between the king and Haman and herself. And she couldn't go and make the arrangement right away. Mordecai comes up to her and says, "Did you hear the news? They're going to try and kill your people. They're going to try to kill us. You know, and you can do something about this. You're the queen. You can do something about this." And she was kind of afraid to talk to the king in that manner. You know, hey, I'm just a wife. I'm just the queen. You know, I do this, but I don't give advice, and I don't give counsel, and I don't tell him how to rule this country. And he says, you know, who's to say that God didn't bring you into this position for such a time as this? And that goes for all of us Christians. You know, who's to say that God didn't create you for such a time as this? Here we are in a generation that doesn't know its right hand from its left. It's so confused in its gender and its mix-up. And here we are, and if we're learning God's word and knowing it, knowing what's right and wrong, you know, maybe we're built for the generation that we're in, to let those know about it, to let those know. So anyways, she ends up having this meeting, and Haman is there, and she ends up telling the king, you know, there's somebody that wants to kill me and my people, you know, and I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew, and I'm going to lose my life, and my family, they're going to lose their lives, you know. And the king is angry. Who would do such a thing as this? And she goes, your friend Haman, he would do it. He wrote the letter. He sent it out. And at this time, Haman had already thought he was going to have this nice banquet with the queen and the king himself, and here he is being all special, that he's going to have his own important place. And earlier that day, he had had gallows built to hang Mordecai on. Mordecai in his house, or so on. And when the king found out that his own friend that he trusted would betray him like that, would do something like that to harm his own wife and her family, he goes on and he sentences him. Hang him on those gallows that he made for Mordecai. Now, I left out a little part of that story. Mordecai actually found a plot. There was a plot to kill the king earlier in that story. And the king ends up reading that story and found out that Mordecai really tried to save his life one day and never got rewarded for it. But then he finds out that Haman is going to try and execute this guy Mordecai. You know, Mordecai did him well. He's going to execute, or try to execute, the family of Esther. And it ends up falling against him, right? He ends up trying to have these gallows that are going to hang his enemy, but he ends up hanging on it himself. So verse 27 kind of reminds me of that. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. And finally, we are going to our last verse here, verse 28. A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. In the Amplified it says, a lying tongue hates those it wounds and crushes, and a flattering mouth works ruin. In the Contemporary English Version, I put, watch out for anyone who tells lies and flatters. They are out to get you. So that's just a kind of warning there. And that sums up chapter 26. This one was titled Observations About Fools. So, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking around. God bless you in Jesus' mighty name. I really hope that we're taking all of God's words and we're using it. And if anything affects us, we're making the right choices to follow the Lord in sincerity and in truth, right? There the verse goes, God is spirit, And those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And I pray that we're giving all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our strength, all of our mind to follow the Lord, to know the difference between right and wrong, to not choose what is wrong, to put that behind us, to trust what God did by sending his Son to save us, and to follow him in reverence, in honor, and in truth, genuine, in sincerity, in genuine sincerity, and in truth, because we're obedient, we know what is right. I pray that we do so and that we continue to be a good vessel, right? Not one that's just covered up, made to look shiny or whatever, but we're actually legit, a purified, good vessel, worthy for the King's duty. Thank you again for sticking around. God bless you. And tomorrow I'll see you again on chapter 27.